Tomintoul Distillery was built in 1965 by a pair of Glasgow whiskey traders, Hay and MacLeod and W and S Strong. In 1973 it became part of White & Mackay and remained with the blending firm until 2000 when it was purchased by Angus Dundee. Through its history it has been known to be sought after whiskey in the blending market because of its mild and smooth nature. It has been called the gentle dram and now is starting to gather interest in its more recent single malt bottlings. Its style has changed from the earlier fruity presentations to the more cereal accented notes in recent years. They produce a 55 ppm peated version at the distillery called Old Bellatron. The mash tun at Tomintoul is a capacity of 11.6 tons and runs 15 mash cycles per week when running at full capacity. Fermentation takes place in 6 stainless steel washbacks for around 54 hours and produces a beer of 8 to 9% alcohol. Tomintoul has 2 exceptionally large 22,000 litre wash stills and 2 19,700 litre spirit stills with reflux bowls. They produce the new spirit at 69% alcohol. Tomintoul uses mostly American white oak and ex-bourbon casks to mature the whiskey. Oloroso, sherry, and port wine casks are also used for special bottlings. The 6 warehouses can hold up to 116,000 casks. Robert Fleming is the manager and master distiller at Tomintoul and grew up a few miles down the road in Glenlivet. He is the director with 30 years at Angus Dundee and over 45 years in the whiskey business. You can hike or explore by bike the historic Glenlivet Estate and the Speyside Malt Whisky Trail from Tomintoul, the highest village in the Highlands. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and just finished another bike ride. I was on the tour bike there, and just getting ready to do another review. So I think my energy's up enough to do it. It was a good long ride, and still have enough energy, I think, to review Tomintoul. So, Tomintoul. It's not an old distillery, but it's not a new distillery. This dates to the 60s. There was a few distilleries that were designed and built in the 60s, and this was one of them. They call it Tomintoul Glenlivet because it's in the Glenlivet Estate, not far from Glenlivet. So, and also the town of Tomintoul, which is not far from this, is one of the highest in Scotland. So, let's get into it. Let's take a peek at the bottle and the nice little carrying case. I always like these little more solid carrying cases here. So we'll start off with a good solid. I like that, nice and solid. No chance of a bottle of whiskey falling through this. A little bit of a story about Tomintoul on the back here. Basically, some interesting stuff there, but nothing really. It's a little bit of flannel, I guess you could say. But it does tell us that it's bottled at 46% and it is non-chill filtered, which is kind of nice to know. So there you are. And, of course, the bottle itself. So we'll take a look at the bottle. And I don't think there's any coloring, or there's very little coloring in this, because really, when you look at it, it just doesn't look like there's much coloring in it. So there you are. I'm not going to waste a lot of time reading labels, etc. I usually pour a glass and give you a brief history of Tomintoul. So that's what we will do. But first, let's open up the bottle. And I think a while back there we opened up a bottle. I think we had a little issue. It was that a Ball Blair? I'm trying to think. No, that was a Napo Castle, the Irish. I think that was the last I'm pretty sure it was the last review I did. Yeah. So we will give it a pour. Give it first the pull of the cork and make sure it doesn't break. And success. And let's give it a pour in my Trudeau glass here. So I felt like doing some sniffing here and getting a good nose here tonight, so I pulled out the Trudeau glass. I switch back and forth quite a bit between the Trudeau and the Glencairn, but I don't do it in the middle of a review. That would kind of mess things up, because they do nose different, or I'd say this is just a little more amplified than the Glencairn. So anyways, so let it sit for a while, and we'll do a brief history here. This is basically two whiskey companies that got together, W&S Strong, and the other was Hay and MacLeod. They were from Glasgow, and they basically in 1965 they founded Tomintoul Distillery, and it wasn't long, and it was sold to Scottish and Universal Investment Trust. And that was in '73. And then it went on to being part of White Mackay, and that was also with the Fennercarn Distillery. It was part of that. And so it was White Mackay that basically administrated it from that point on. Eventually White and Mackay was, they were part of the American company, Universal Investment Trust. And then again, as we move on here, like lots of change in ownership here, which is kind of boring stuff, I think. But it eventually got to where, I think it was around 2000, Angus Dundee ends up with Tomintoul. And Tomintoul is not what I call a pretty distillery. It's very industrial, so it's not your classic, the pagoda roof. Mm-hmm. There is no visitor center, and that's probably part of the reason they haven't really done it up. But you can get tours. I think they do offer tours, so you do have to get a hold of them if you're looking at doing a tour. What is interesting is that when the company started, its focus was mainly doing blends, and it got to be kind of, because it was a lighter blend. It started off as kind of a fruity blend, and I think it swung over a little bit more to the cereal, more of a cereal sweet blend, but it's mainly bourbon casks, but there is some Oloroso presentations and some port wine casks as well. The warehouses can hold up to 116,000 casks, and they do a lot of trading of casks. And in fact, you can find a Lefroy cask in their warehouse, and you can find some of the other distilleries around there. Certainly the one closest to it to the south, we know which distillery that one is. In fact, that gets us talking about Robert Fleming, who has been in the industry for 45 plus years, 46, probably at this date, probably more like closer to 50 years. But Robert Fleming had been with the Angus Dundee for 30. He's one of the directors. He's also the manager of Tomintoul, and he is also the Master Distiller, and a very knowledgeable fellow. And I was listening to him being interviewed, and he's another person I really wanted to mention because I was very impressed with his knowledge. Kind of a very interesting fellow. So it maybe not as iconic a name as some of the other names out there, but certainly just as knowledgeable as them. Here, basically the actual distillation here, they usually produce a 69% spirit, and their fermentation time is around 54 plus hours. It produces that 8 to 9% beer. Basically, it went from 2 to 4 stills. That was probably within the first 15 years of its production, and I believe it does 3.5 million liters a year. So anyways, that's enough history on it there. Let's move on. Just thinking that other person I wanted to mention was Billy Walker. I was just, it sort of came a bit of a brain freeze there for a moment there, but I just sort of relating to Jim McEwen and of course Billy Walker when I was listening to Robert Fleming and just his knowledge. Very smart guy and just years and years in the business. And he, by the way, he grew up in Glenlivet, and his dad worked at the Glenlivet Distillery. So when he was a kid, he hung out at Glenlivet Distillery. So, when we're talking his working history, let's just talk about how many years he's been around these distilleries. Now we're getting in the 50s and 60s. So very interesting fellow. So we'll move on here. And I think now it's time. We've let this thing sit for a while here. So I think it's time to nose it. So, oh, interesting. Very interesting nose. Lots of fruit showing up here. I'm going to say we got the regular pear, peach, citrus, mixed with some berries and honey notes, some caramel mac. I'd say maybe here's a good representation of Macintosh toffee. And I'm getting in the, it's quite an interesting nose. I'm getting in the background. Oh, it's something minty maybe. Oh boy, it's minty, but there's something else there. Like a spearmint. Oh, wow. Grassy, spearmint. Maybe a bit of dill. If you had dill growing in the garden. Interesting. Very interesting stuff. So, 14 years is supposed to be bourbon matured. So we're talking ex-bourbon casks. And as I was listening to the interview with Robert Fleming there, first fill, second fill, and 46%. So there is something here for body. I could tell it by the nose, and I think it's time now for the palate. Solange. Well, I'm getting a bit of a light spice, some cinnamon, ginger, cinnamon. You know what? I'd say more ginger. I'd say definitely more ginger. Just a little bit more there. I didn't get much of a. Yeah, ginger. Nice ginger. No, warm. Not overly spicy, and a little bit of that white pepper. The very nice honey notes to this too. I'd say a little bit of clover honey with a little bit of citrus. There's a wee bit of chocolate coming through here. Actually clears my nostril. The wood is just now starting to show, but it's not bitter. Slight bit of the spice, I think, coming from the wood itself. So we got the honey, we got the spice, and I'm going to stick with the cinnamon. And there's definitely some now baking spices and cereal notes showing up here. It's got a good medium finish to it, I can tell. So let's go for the finish. Solange. Definitely a medium finish. Yeah. It's really coating the mouth. Now they call this a gentle. This is called the gentle spirit, but I think up till now, most people relate to this because it's been a blend, and the most popular, they did have a 12, they put out a 12, and by the way, the 12 is also, they put out an Oloroso 12, and I think the 15 is their port presentation, but most of their whiskeys are 40%. And so this is unusual. This is a 46. And so they call it the gentle dram. And I believe that this is kind of wandering a little away from, because there is some impact to it. Now still, it's a gentle whiskey, there's no question about it. But I think there's a little bit more that it's telling us than, let's say, in some of the other presentations. Though I did watch a couple of the reviews on it, and one particular review where they talked about the 16, which is a 40, and they felt that the 16, which is chill filtered, and it is a 40, they felt it had a little bit more to offer. And I really have to try the 16 because I was having a hard time with that one. But yeah, these are two pretty well respected reviewers that the single in the single malt whiskey presentation that I do watch some of their some of their videos, and don't always agree with them, and that was just rather confusing, I found, because this is a 46, and they're saying that the 40, and they said they were surprised too, the 4016 had a wee bit more character. So I'm going to have to get the 16. That's all there is to it, and we're going to have to give that one a shot. But I think overall, this has definitely the medium finish. It has the lighter notes for a 46, but it's not as light and delicate as, let's say, a Glencairn. But it is giving you a little bit more of that Glenlivet, that's probably a good descriptor, because Glenlivet is only a few miles to the south, and it is in the Glenlivet Estate. So now you got to remember, this has got a much shorter history. This is the 60s is when they started this up. I think this whiskey has evolved, and because of the whiskey itself, it is a valuable blending whiskey, and they do quite well selling this whiskey as a blend. They really didn't have to get into single malts, except we are seeing more and more popularity towards single malts, and you can now actually make money selling single malts. But they do quite well. This whiskey is very much in demand as a blend, but not because it's something like a Mortlach, which it has a huge amount of character, a lot of body, very meaty. This might be the other direction. So it is a more delicate dram, but at the same time, being 46, it's probably giving us a wee bit more than what most of their presentations would give. This one is going to be just one last taste, so I can kind of finalize a score for this. So much. Definitely getting something different in here that I haven't been able to identify, and it's leathery notes, something with those leathery notes that I'm going to have to add water to this, because I think that's what's missing right now, is we're going to give it some water and see if I can really identify what it is. I did read some reviews. I did get some of the other descriptors from including Ralphie. Ralphie did a review on this. He actually was pretty good to it. A few of the other reviewers were relatively good to it. I would just say there was a couple of funny reviews. They were hard to interpret where they were going with the review. They seemed, one of the reviews, they actually seemed a little on the confused side, because they, as you're reviewing a whiskey, things can change through that review, and that's why it's good to go back. And I think a lot of my whiskeys, I'm going to have to go back and re-review them at a later date and just see if things do change. We know that we change from day to day. Our palate changes. What are we eating? What's our energy level? What's our mood? There's a lot of variables you're playing with. I just went for a really good bike ride. probably a little bit of adrenaline flowing. So what's it going to be like in the morning? I just got out of bed. Not that we should be drinking whiskey early in the morning, but it does change from day to day. So we're trying to average everything out, and I think with your over years of doing this, you get better at it and understanding how you're reviewing and trying to be fair, and that's what I'm going to try to do now, is just see what else I can pick up. And I do listen a little bit to what these, because I'm looking for things with these other reviews, so that's why I look at other reviewers. So anyways, I'm almost getting what I did right at the beginning there, the first impact of the fruits. But the leather is kind of hidden right at the moment. At least I'm not getting it in the nose. But I get the fruits, I'm getting the honey. Definitely can get the ginger though. That's what I've really picked up here with the water. And the palate with water. That leather thing, it's there, but it was quite prominent just before I added the water, but not quite as prominent now. So you always, with water, try to find something different, but I am getting like I say, I'm getting the berries, the honey, the things that I was getting earlier, and the cinnamon, and I'm saying the spearmint, The spearmint is what was kind of throwing me off there. The spearmint and the leather is what was quite unique, is what I picked up here, and that was what I was trying to get with the water. So oh, the leather's there. The leather's there, yeah. And it's like saddle leather, equestrian leather. So we'll stay with the those notes. I think the uniqueness on this drink tonight was the spearmint. I haven't had spearmint for a while. The leather notes do come up once in a while for a light dram, and it's marketed as a light dram. I didn't even read what they're telling us on the label, by the way. Certainly, they will have a story on the back when they describe it. They're telling me that it is a delicate honeyed creamed light floral malt, hints of wild fennel, complex sweetness, and then the palate is a luscious and it says dry oaky vanillas, clean creamy malt which never overpowers the natural sweetness. Not really saying a lot there, are they? The finish is productively a dryness and slight peppery. Well, we got the peppery tones, and Tomintoul without its clothes on. Huh. Doesn't really tell us much of anything, does it? Really? Anyways, let's leave it at that. So I like this stuff. This here to me, it's somewhere between an 83 and an 84. I really think it is. It's a decent dram. 46. It's a lighter one. Like I say, it's not quite at the Glencairn level, but it's getting closer maybe to the Glenlivet. And it's got some interesting little notes to it, so I do recommend it. I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, do not drink and drive. Until the next time, so much.